You're back with us this afternoon here on day two of the 2024 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference. Earlier today, first thing this morning at the breakfast meeting, the business breakfast meeting, there was a very special project. A book was launched celebrating women in energy. One of the subjects of that book is Giselle Thompson. Another subject of the book is Deborah Benjamin, who's also the publisher of the book. These two ladies have agreed to tell their stories and spend a few minutes with me this afternoon as we continue to highlight women in energy and some of the key things that face them, the challenges and the opportunities as well. I'll start with Giselle. Thank you all both, by the way, for spending some time with us. I know the energy conference, your schedules have been packed. Why did you decide to share your story, Giselle?
Shelly, thanks for the opportunity to chat with the audience and Deborah for being here and for taking on such a brave task of publishing this book. It was a bit daunting. At first, it was like, why me? Because there are many successful women in energy. And I understand we all have very different, lived experiences, but yet still lots of similarities, right? As you see come out, certain themes coming up in the book. Um, yeah, it took me a while to get comfortable with the thought that should I really do this? Because it is being vulnerable and it is
Yeah.
being open about your experiences, which many of which are positive and some not so positive. But I think it's important, in sharing that story for others to just understand. Maybe many women can relate to those stories to say, oh, I'm not alone in this, or I'm not crazy when I think this is happening. And maybe it is. But also, I think in all of the stories that came out in the book, right, it's um, hearing and understanding the grit and determination that for some others reading that may say, well, maybe there is a way through this difficulty that I'm going through. So I guess in sharing my story, I'm hoping that others can see they're not alone in the journey, and that as women, we all have very similar shared experiences and sometimes different experiences. But I felt it was important to be open and to be vulnerable and to share.
Deborah, was it also difficult telling your story?
It was, but being the publisher and embarking on the project, it was something I was prepared to do. And what was very meaningful to me was the fact that the experiences were largely the same. What it did for me is exactly what Giselle said. It said to me, I'm not alone. It's not an isolated experience. And it validated a lot of where I thought I was, uh, and seeing that it is still continuing to this day. It also reinforced the fact that we need to advocate more. The voices need to be heard. And it's not a man bashing book by any means, but what it says is we need to wake up. These are the issues facing women in this energy industry. And we're an industry that is always big on continuous improvement. So we would want to ensure that matters are addressed.
So you
Areas like
both
this.
have spent quite a bit of time in the energy sector. Have you seen growth, progress, change in your own companies, but also across the landscape?
I've seen a lot of growth, I must say. I mean, while there's still so much to be done, I'm always the kind of the glass is half full person.
Yes.
So I would say I've seen us come a long way, where we're just seeing more females coming through the ranks and um, not just, on the front line, at lower levels in the organization, but actually making it up. And where I've seen that difference is really through deliberate support that, maybe was not there. I mean, so I've been in the industry for 18 years. Maybe it wasn't there when I started, but seeing that, there are more support systems and there's more flexibility, there's more acknowledgement of, this concept of equity, that different people need different things to help them succeed, right? So to level that playing field, what I need may be very different to what somebody else needs, or, my male counterpart, or someone younger than me in their career. So I think there is a definite recognition that there's a lot of value that we can unleash in our workforce if we recognize where everyone is starting from, and if we work hard on equity and the buzzwords of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but more than just the buzzwords, but being very deliberate in some of the things and the decisions we're making and the approaches we try to actually support our men and our women to continue being as successful as they can be.
Deborah.
Absolutely.
So again, it's to have an understanding so we can move the agenda forward faster, right? In many areas, there just isn't an awareness. And what this does is bring some awareness to our male counterparts to let them know, hey, this is where we're experiencing these issues. We don't always talk about it because we're expected to perform in a very similar way, but we do experience it in our own unique way. And as Caribbean women, whether it's Trinidad, whether it's Guyana, whether it's Suriname, we are facing these issues and the industry wants to help. It wants to make things better for us. So I think by the voices coming out and making the industry aware of what we're facing, then we can find solutions.
You used a phrase a while ago, Giselle, deliberate support. You also said that there's still a lot to be done. What are some of the things that you think still require deliberate support?
So I think we're learning a lot as we're doing. So I mean, I will draw on just some of our examples of BP. We are trying to get more women in leadership roles at site. And we've tried different approaches and different programs. And in doing that, some fail, if I'm being honest, right? Because we think we're doing a good thing and maybe we haven't structured it right. So there's still, that's what I'm saying, we're still learning a lot. It's wonderful that we have the females who are stepping forward and who are willing to put their hands up and say, okay, this is an experiment, but I'm willing to go with it. And I think a lot of what we've been learning in that experience is that we need to give our men support, right? Because not just focusing on the woman, but the men understanding the why are we doing this, that it's not that we're giving someone an advantage over you, or, but helping them understand how this is leveling the playing field, helping them understand what's your role in coaching and mentoring, this female, because that's the other thing, women at the front line in the offshore environment or onshore sites, they don't have now very many female leaders to look to for mentorship at site. So we need the guys who are there to actually be allies, and to take up that challenge and to say, I'm going to help and I'm going to mentor and I'm going to support you, versus trying, the microaggressive behaviors that may happen. Because those little biases creep in, they may not understand why are we doing this. They may feel like, this person is given an opportunity over me. So I think where we have more work to do is actually with our male population. And really helping, and we actually launched that last year or year before, really, men as allies. We can't just all sit in a room as women, as females in the business and talk about what we need to do differently. We need to enroll and enlist the male allies in our organization who are going to champion this, who are going to support. So that's why I'm saying there's more work to do in how we just enroll everyone in this.
Yeah, correct.
And it's not about giving someone an advantage over another, but it's really just about understanding everyone has different needs.
Yeah. Deborah?
Definitely. And what that does in a very positive way is take the conversation away from the tokenism, because it has been, there is an element of that where you're being looked at as, oh, she was put there because she's a woman and they have to put a woman there. And what that does is help the men in the industry understand that, no, she's just as qualified and so on, but you'd also have a role in mentoring and so on. So it takes away that type of conversation, that it's a tokenism type of thing. And that's being fair to the young women as well that are trying to break barriers in the industry. So Giselle is absolutely right in developing the men in the area as well along in this conversation.
And you have gotten quite a bit of support since the book launch this morning. I understand quite a few of the major companies are buying up the books upstairs, not just for their female staff and executives, but for themselves as well. I understand National Energy is a big purchaser as well for one of them. Ladies, as we continue to look forward to great things from both of you, what would be, you're both sitting down in leadership positions, you're both policymakers to one degree or another. What kind of policies can we be looking for from you as we heading into the future and as you lead your companies, your respective companies into the future? What are some of the things that we can look out for from you?
For me, I mean, I personally am just a big believer in very structured mentorship and coaching programs. And I think that's, it's the day-to-day work that we need to do. It's not that we have a nice conversation about women in leadership or the front line once or twice a year, but it's a consistent approach to how we ingrain that in everything that we do, from an organization perspective, and making sure we're investing the time in that so that we're supporting our females right through. Because we see many times they progress to certain points and then things become difficult, and many times they don't have the confidence to advocate for their needs, and they feel like I can't ask for help and I can't ask for this accommodation. And many times it's not just because of kids, it may be because they have ailing parents. There's just a lot of other challenges women are dealing with every day. So for me, it's really about making sure from a policy position, a company support position, we have very strong mentorship programs in place and coaching programs in place to support our females.
Deborah?
Similarly, I will echo exactly what Giselle is saying. The mentorship needs to be there, as well as developing the understanding with the men of how to coach and mentor not just their own male counterparts, but the female counterparts. Having a career development program for the women to understand that they can move through, right? That it's not just a male area. And to help them want to move through to those areas, because there's a lot of hesitancy as to whether I should or whether I could, or I don't think I can deal with this. And it's to help the women move through and gain the confidence to understand that they can be there as well. I think this book does that. I think also the fact that it aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals. So gender equity, SDG 5, right? The advancement of women and young girls in the industry. And that's something that I've always been passionate about. The policies exist. They exist, they're not new ones. And we just have to look at proper implementation and not just a talk shop. As Giselle said, we have to look at real execution, and it doesn't happen overnight or from one conversation. It is consistent, deliberate implementation.
I want to thank you both very, very much for sharing your stories and for this book, A Different Energy, by author Celeste Mohammed, by published by Deborah Benjamin, and containing the stories of women like Giselle Thompson, Arlene Chow, and so on. It's actually something you can't miss. So make sure and find it at bookstores near you. Stay with us. We'll be right back.